Section 11.6 is quadratic function and graph. Quadratic function, as we mentioned before, is ax2 plus bx plus c. Graph of quadratic equation or a function is the parabola. A special case of quadratic is this one, which we doesn't have b and c. See here, if you don't have b and c, if both are 0, then you just have like that. So graph of, let's say a is 1, graph of y equal x2 is just a ball. So here, if you have y equal to x2, graph is like a half a ball. Now, if you have, you might have 5x2 or like 1/5 of x2. One fraction is greater than 1, one fraction is less than 1. Like in that case, what it does to this graph is either wider or thinner. To understand that, we could look at the examples that they have here. In this example, they want to compare two graphs. One is half, the other one is 2. One is less than 1, the other one is greater than 2. So what it does, if you notice here, this is the black one is graph of x2. When it's 2x2, the graph is skinnier, and when it's half, graph is wider, which is the red color. So that's the difference whether you have a less than 1 or greater than 1. Now, if I want to graph y equal minus x2 is when you have y equal x2, if you flip that with respect to x-axis, then you have minus x2. So the graph of minus x2 is just when you flip the y equal x2, is this one. Now, let's say we have a graph of y equal x2, and we want to find graph of x2 plus 3. Graph of x2 plus 3 means take graph of x2 and shift that -3 is always up, shifted up on the y-axis 3 units. So it would be 1, 2, 3. So this point would move up. Now, if I have y equal x2 minus 5, when this number is negative, then you take the x2 and you shift it down 5 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have this one. So this is x2 minus 5, this is x2. So you have all this shift. If numbers is adding or subtracting to x2, shift is always up or down, just depend. Now, what if you have the shift inside of the parentheses, like x minus 3 to power of 2? In that case, the shift is on the x-axis. Shift of x2 is on the x-axis, and it's always opposite of this. So if this is -3, then it's +3. You shift it horizontally, +3. This is x minus 3 to power of 2. Or if you have x plus 1 to power of 2, that means when you have x2, the shift on the horizontal axis is always opposite of this. So if this is +1, the shift is to the left, which is -1. But later on, we want to discuss that instead, this is method of translations. But if you don't want to go with method of translation, then there is another method to graph a function. So in that case, here we move to the formula, which is right here. Y equal 8x minus h to the power of 2 plus k. So here, h and k are coordinates of the vertex. 8 determine whether the graph open upward or downward. So let me show you here. The general equation is and then I explain to you what vertex is. This is a general equation for any problem. If value of a in front of the parenthesis is greater than 0, then parabola opens upward. If a is less than 0, then parabola open downward. In case that parabola open upward, you always have minimum, means this point is a minimum point. In case the parabola open downward, this point is the maximum point, okay? In the problem, if we ask you to determine whether what is your minimum or maximum value, k is your minimum. So k is minimum or maximum value. It just depends on the shape of the graph, whether it's open up or down. Vertex is the highest or lowest point on the graph. The top point here is the vertex, the lowest or the highest. Coordinates of the vertex is h and k. And any type of parabola, there is a line that split the parabola into 2 equal pieces. They call this a line of symmetry or axis of symmetry. And what is equation of this line is x equal to h. Okay, so h and k are vertex, which is the highest or lowest point. A number in front of the parentheses always determine whether your parabola open upward or downward. So we want now to use this to go over the problems. I'll put a copy of this example. This is based on all the shift. How we shift up everything. But we don't need to use method of translation if you understand how to graph it using vertex and other functions. Okay. All right. The first one, we want to graph y equals 7/2 of x2. So what I do is first I write a general equation here. When you write the general equations, you write this one underneath them. So 7/2 x2 means you don't have h, you don't have k. That means your vertex is this point, 0, 0. Okay, that's your vertex, and a is 7/2. 7/2 is the positive number. Since it's a positive number, we know our graph open upward. Here they just want you to graph it. Okay, to graph it, I show that one here next to it. You could also come up with some numbers if you want. You could just go in 1, -1, 2, and -2 and graph it. But here, the vertex is 0, 0. The lowest point is 0, 0. How do I know graph is correct? Is open upward. if A is positive, graph always open upwards. The second one is x minus 16 to power of 2. Again, I write the general equations. When I write the general equation, I notice A is 1, because it didn't show any number here, this is 1. There is no k, k is 0. A is 1 is greater than 0, so graph open up. So graph has to open upward. And the vertex is 16 and 0. So it's minus h, minus 16 is the h. So that would be the vertex. So you see the graph looks like this. Vertex is 16, x is 16, y is 0, and it's open upward. See, vertex is 16 and 0, and graph open upward. So we don't need to use method of translation if you understand how to do it this way. The next one is, we want to graph the following. So again, I write it here under the general equations. A is negative, so we know graph open downward. Vertex is this point, the highest point, 8 and 0, h and k, 8 and 0. So you graph. Again, this one, you write it here. A is 3, 3 is greater than 0, so parabola open upward. Vertex is 11 and 0. This is 11 and 0. 11 and 0 is your vertex, which is the lowest point here, and then you open it upward. So the best way is to just write the general equations under the equation of the problem, and then you could tell what A, H, and K are. See, A is 1, so graph open upward. Vertex is always opposite of this number. So if this is positive 2, the x of vertex is negative 2. But the k always remain same value. K is negative 5, you put that negative 5. Okay? So if you want to find h, whatever you have in the parentheses, set it equal to 0, that give you the h, which here is negative 2. So it's always opposite of the number that you have here. So the vertex is negative 2 and negative 5, which is this point. They also ask for axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetric is the line that split the graph. And that one is always here. So x equal negative 2 is the equation of this line. The other one is very similar. A is negative 2, so the graph open downward. You see this down. Vertex is opposite of 1 is negative 1 and 3. That's the vertex. Minus 1 and 3 is the coordinates of this point. Axis of symmetry is x equal negative 1. See, they all are based on that equations that we had in the beginning. See, you have to have a copy of this so you understand it. H and K are the vertex. This x equal to h is a line of symmetry. And then later on, if he asks you to find maximum or any minimum, this value. Now we're very similar. Greater than 0. Vertex is opposite of 4 is negative 4 and 1, and so on. A is negative, downward. Vertex is -4, opposite of -4 is 4 and 8. The index, and this one they ask you for maximum. Why is the maximum? Because the highest point is right here. Like here, we should ask for minimum. This is a minimum, this is a maximum. And what is that number? Is always K. K is 8, means this height is 8. So when we ask you for max is 8, which is this length. A is negative, parabola up. This is not correct. Parabola open downward. And then these are -5 and 3, the vertex, line of symmetry, and maximum because it's going down. So this was not correct. And then the last one, they are saying you don't have to graph, just look and tell what is vertex. The general formula, you write the general formula. A is negative radical 3, and this is the vertex. Vertex is H and K. Line of symmetry is that. And Y is the maximum because the graph open. A is negative, means graph open downward. So it's a maximum.